Hello, it is noon, so it is time for the author Q&A. Assuming that it went up, there it goes. Okay, cool. So, um, yeah, this is where you guys can come and ask me questions about the Archive of Sinners and any of the process. If there aren't questions, I do have a list of questions and stuff I'll be running over myself. If it's really dead, I might jump off early. There's a lot of stuff going on today for Archive of Sinners. You also have chances later if you miss the chance right now. I am Sanzaki Kojika, or well, that's my pen name, so I'm the author of the books, and today I'm cosplay as Tubi from Nier Automata, one of my favorite video games, and one of my definitely favorite soundtracks to write with. It's an amazing soundtrack, and you should definitely give it a listen if you haven't actually given the game some stuff. But yeah, so this is a Q&A. I'll go ahead. So some of you guys may not actually know a lot about Archive of Sinners. A lot of you guys, I just kind of, a lot of people got invited to the event. A lot of people responded that I have no idea who you are. So great, nice to meet you. I hope you guys have a chance to read this story. Currently, all of the books there are 5 books out of the 7 total. As the name implies, each of the books is themed around a different sin, and all of them involve a different supernatural creature. The general premise of the story is Barry Kane is a psychic who really doesn't know too much about his powers and doesn't really know how to control it, use them or anything. So he's just kind of been floating around with them and not really considering it. He works at Kane Investigations as a private investigator. Is that a door? I don't know. Eventually, my older sister is coming over, so she might actually show up during this. I also might actually handle some of the questions for her to ask, so it's not just me talking back and forth. Anyways, so it's basically him they get roped into, at the beginning, it's him and Thomas working for Kane Investigations only, and they kind of get roped into some supernatural cases when they are trying to locate a person who turns out to be the little sister of Preeti, one of the other main characters in the Archive of Sinners, and so that's kind of what starts it. So Lust is the first book. Succubus are what you get in there. I would like to point out that it is not dirty. It is very violent, if anything. That's about the only reason I would give it a higher rating. But yeah, so no sex or anything. Sorry if that's what you were looking for. This is not a paranormal romance. This is literally just a paranormal mystery. Book 2 is Greed. They deal with ghosts. I'm not going to give you spoilers for everything, but I'll give you the creatures. Book 3 is Gluttony, Werewolf. Book 4 is Wrath, actually Witches and Witches Familiars. Has to do with something that happened at the end of Book 3, so it kind of ties into that. Book 5 is Sloth. That is the most recent one. It came out last year. It has to do with a Buhag, which is a really kind of obscure thing. Specifically, I wanted to work with another character who was originally in book 3, and it just made sense. I'm trying to not pick necessarily the most common ones. There will not be any vampire or fae in any of the first 7 books. If I decide to do more later on, because there's also 7 virtues. That would be when I would consider that, or even short stories. The only reason the werewolves were in there is because it started from a dream. So yeah, which I'll talk about in a second. So, but yeah, right now all of those books, so all 5 of them are on there. Well, you can get them all on Amazon on a regular basis, paperback and ebook. But right now, hello Firearm. Right now, all of the ebooks are actually on sale for 99 cents on Amazon. So if you look up Sanzaki Kojika or the Archive of Sinners, you can find them. So that's okay if you can't hear me if there's an ad. This is just an author Q&A. This isn't exciting. I don't actually know what Twitch is saying that it's under, though. Might still be putting it under art. I'm not drawing, guys. Sorry. But yeah. So I'll also talk a little bit about this event. So this event has been going on most of the day. It started last night at midnight, basically. There's been some scheduled posts going up, so I wasn't actively dealing with most of them. But there's still lots of chances to win and stuff. The flash trivia that went up has not been answered yet. There are 5 or 6 questions total. So if you go to the event page, which is on Facebook, Sanseki Kojika author, you can find it that way, or it's a Halloween event if you can find it that way as well. But it basically the flash trivia is a little harder than some of the other things. There's a pop quiz later that's a little easier. The flash trivia is purposely a little harder, but I will give you a hint. So some of the questions, I think at least 2 or 3 of them, you can actually find the answer in the Archive of Sinners art book, or the Archive of Sinners. It was done for like an Ink October a few years back. So if you can find that, you can get some of the answers there. So yeah, that's kind of the easy thing. If you've read the book, some of the other ones are a lot easier, or pretty easy. Basically, if you've read the books, I think the first one would be really easy. I don't remember what all of the other ones are. I'd have to look back. I wrote these like a week ago, so I'd have everything ready and not have to like be stressing about it. So they've all been scheduled to go for about a week. There will also be some other live events later. So this is a live Q&A where, ask me questions, get answers about anything archive or like my process or anything. I'm not going to answer just random questions like what's the velocity of a swallow. But yeah. Let's see. The live events later, we have a Q&A with some of the characters. I will have 3 cosplayers playing Very, Preeti, and Ken. Very is the psychic, the main character. Preeti is the succubus. And Ken is the werewolf. So you guys will have a chance to ask them directly questions, and they were answered to the best of their ability in character. I'm actually going to be very myself during that, so I will be also kind of running mod as answering questions. I'm the author. I hope I know my own stuff. Preeti knows a little bit. Ken is probably a little even less versed, so I expect there to be some like looking at me like, what am I supposed to say kind of things. I'm going to coach them on some stuff ahead of time too. But yeah, they were nice enough to volunteer to do it. So that's kind of it. I was hoping to get Missy in there as well, but that's how it happens sometimes, It's you don't want to have big groups and stuff right now because not safe. But yeah, there is also going to be a live reading of a news story. Technically, I'm not 100% done with it. It's a short story. I've got about 21 pages written. I'm not actually done. Close to the end now. I kind of got lost in the middle and was like, where am I going with this? But I kind of found myself again, and that's what's really helped. So I don't think it will be finished by tonight at all, but it's only going to be like an hour read and with probably some questions and stuff before and after. So I don't expect, it to even go through the whole short story. I will be posting it later on when it is complete, which will be in the next couple days if I don't finish it today. It will be posted on my Patreon, only for paid tiers. I will have it accessible at the low tier of $3. So if you guys haven't become a Patreon yet and are interested in reading it, you can do that. There will be a lot of writing and stuff going up in November because November is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. I am not working on the next Archive of Sinners for that one, though. Sorry, guys. Hannah, the sequel to Altier, is actually the one that will be my focus. I teased it last year, and it's had so many people asking me for it. So I do have a little bit of the next book written for Archive of Sinners. The next book is Envy, which means Pride will be the last one. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a scavenger hunt going on. It's got some hints about some of the next books in there as well. The last live will be later in the night. It's not on a schedule, like it has a start time. I think the start time is 9. I don't even know my own schedule, guys. I said it, there's so much going on today. But yeah, so for the schedule for the that one, it's going to be more talking about the lore and stuff than the direct books and things like that. Yeah, so if you guys hop onto that one, we'll talk more about like some of the creatures and how I'm handling the lore. Or if you guys have some other questions and I missed stuff, you missed some of these other ones, I'll take them during that time, since that's kind of what it's for. It's like, you guys missed stuff and let's just chat. It is going to probably be at least half hour long, but once again, if it's kind of a dead thing, I'm not gonna stay on forever because kind of weird talking to myself. But yeah, so that's kind of the event for the day. I always think of Archive of Sinners as a very Halloween themed one. A couple years back, I actually wrote a Halloween based story for it, based off of a ghost hunt that I did with a friend in Crown Point, Indiana. I'm from Northwest Indiana, so if you guys read the books, you notice a lot of it takes place in well, specifically, they are out of Schaumburg, Illinois. A lot of it takes place in that area or Chicago proper. Those are kind of the areas I grew up with and explore a lot. Despite living in Indiana, we traveled to Illinois a lot. Well, we did. So there's a lot of haunted places in Illinois, so that's also kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to stick with it. Not only is it a place I'm very familiar with, it's a place that's kind of notorious for being one of the most haunted like cities in the world, kind of like in the U.S. kind of thing. Can't say I've ever had any like actual ghost experiences or anything with it, like specifically in Chicago, but I've heard some stories from friends and stuff, and I do want to explore the area more with this, use it for research for books and stuff. The short story has to do with another pretty famous, the one for this year, the one that I'm writing, we'll be reading later, has to do with a very famous, he's not a ghost, but I'm treating him as a ghost for this, but he's dead, so. But a very famous, or infamous, I should say, person from Chicago back a long time ago. So it's going to be kind of fun. The title of the short story is Remains of a Castle. So for any of you guys who know any of the lore of Chicago or anything like that, that might be enough of a hint. Otherwise, you guys can just catch later during the live reading and find out what it really is about. But yeah, so that's kind of like an introduction to that. As far as me goes, I have been writing forever. I will be 33. I think 33. Am I 32 or 33? Gosh, you can't even keep track of age. Like in a couple weeks, November 13th is my birthday. I was actually born on Friday the 13th when I was born. So Friday the 13th have always been kind of a lucky day for me. 2020 has been a kind of hard year on me all around, which is why there hasn't been as much writing and stuff as I was hoping. So I've been working on volume 13 of Zoe's Kiosks, which is my webcomic. I do graphic novels as well as novels, and it kind of got pushed behind. It had a Kickstarter this year, and it's been fully funded for a while, and it already closed, but I got really busy and tied up with stuff, and lost my job. Then my car got hit and totaled just recently, so I've been dealing with that. I have a new car now. Mostly, I'm just basically waiting on the settlement, but I don't exactly have income, so it's been kind of a crazy year, and I've been having to do a lot more like freelance and commission work and everything. So it's been a very stressful year, but that's why I'm glad to be able to get back into writing next month, because November I do NaNoWriMo every year, which is National Novel Writing Month, in case I didn't say that. But I've been doing it for several years at this point, I think like 8 or 9. A lot of my stories have started or at least developed during that time, because some of them I've already started. Like with Hanif, which is the one I'm choosing to do this year, I already have the first 3 chapters done, I think. At least 2. I know I'm at least in the 3rd chapter. So I've already got it. Just like for Archive of Sinners Envy, I actually have the first 2 chapters underway, and then the other book that is also in the queue to be written, which is the Dragon Pillars Shadow and Light. The last one for that trilogy is also right around the same, where it's in 2 chapters written. So I kind of pick around and play stuff. I always have way too many ideas, but I also tend to listen to what people want to read next and stuff like that. So I do intend to at least have the next Archive and Dragon Pillars out next year sometime. So if they aren't ready by the end of this year, which I doubt it, I'd like to get Hanif done by this year, so we'll see. I was planning on putting out another graphic novel this year, but I don't think I'm going to have the energy, so I'm not going to push it. And it's been a crazy year for everyone, so that's probably for the best. Let's see. So I am going to go through a list. If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and, type them in the chat for me. Otherwise, like I said, I will start going through a list, but if you guys have a question, just knock it down. I looked online for some author questions, basically. A lot of them are really, when you do an author Q&A, you hear a lot of the same questions coming up and down, but this one is basically some more unique questions, and I'm hoping it's a little more interesting because of that. So these are 50 good questions to ask an author. So they're all kind of, all over, but they hopefully will be some more interesting. It's yeah. So, anyways, I'm gonna go through the list. Like I said, long year, long month, so I've kind of really been out of it. But all right. All right, so the first question on this list is what literary pilgrimages have you gone on? Really haven't gone on any. Can't really, haven't really traveled much, haven't been able to afford. I've been to Japan a couple times. I went in 2007 and 2008 for school as a college student. I was over there for the summers, 2 summers over there. I was back in the U.S. for normal schooling and stuff. And then last year my fiance took me over there for 2 weeks and proposed. So I did that. I've been to Canada like once for a convention. But yeah, I haven't really taken any like legit pilgrimages for books. Luckily with Archive of Sinners, everything is in like Chicago area and stuff like that. So there are some locations specifically that I want to do at least short stories for in the future that I would like to visit. Then in the next book, book 6, Envy, one of the new locations that you guys will be introduced to, and I say new, but it's just they haven't been there yet. So this location that they're in is who the McCormick Center. I believe it's McCormick Center. I have to double check. It's either that or the Rosemont Convention Center, but it's a convention center. So if you guys actually read book 5, there's always like a teaser for the next book at the end. They go to a psychic convention in Envy, so you're gonna finally meet some other psychics. That's kind of the big thing with that book. I'm not gonna say too much, but that's why. So we're getting some, like new location stuff like that. So it'll be fun to do. And then the last book, we'll actually be doing some stuff in Indiana for the first time. So that's I don't have any specific places I really need to go to, but I figured so in some of the other books like Chicago, I've been there a lot. When they were in Schaumburg and stuff, I go there all the time. Mitsuwa Marketplace is a big place that I tend to hit a lot, and so they spend some time in Mitsuwa for a bit, and then they also go to the Schaumburg IKEA for this is all in book 2, Greed, and then book 3 a little bit too is Mitsuwa, but book 2 is the IKEA. And yeah, I spend a lot of time there. And when I was writing that book and getting ready for the final fight scene and what I wanted to verify it, so I went up there with my mother and one of my friends, and I took lots of pictures at IKEA to make sure I had stuff really accurate and stuff. There's a lot of the main reason it was important to have some descriptions. If you guys haven't read the book, there is a fight in IKEA, so I wanted to make sure that like if I was breaking displays and stuff like that, I wanted to make sure it was like seemed realistic and stuff, and it was just kind of a funny thing. The short story I wrote for Halloween in 2016 took place at the Crown Point, the old Crown Point jailhouse in Indiana, which is where John Dillinger was held for a while, and then escaped and all that jazz. So it's kind of known as a notoriously haunted spot near me. It's not very far, so I went there and did a ghost hunt set, and that's what the story is based off of. So while it wasn't intended for the Archive of Sinners, I went there as kind of like I was curious, let's see what an actual ghost hunt goes, because all my research for Greed was done through other people and through like internet and stuff, and talking to people who had done ghost hunts. I had never really done one, so that was kind of a thing with that. And then that one I specifically did one and was able to find, okay, so here's some equipment and stuff I wasn't as familiar with. Lately I've been playing a lot of Phasmophobia, so I'm also learning about even more equipment that I didn't know about. Not that that game's necessarily realistic when, people accidentally float in the air, or you can go like, oh, we do a lot of really dumb stuff in there. Sometimes I loot the houses. But yeah, so, things like that. I don't think Archive of Sinners ever really has any place that I would need to go on a pilgrimage. Some places in Chicago, some more haunted spots, things like that, but nothing like where I'd have to go like a major trip. Zoskios, on the other hand, is the one where I really would like to. There's my cat running up in the background in his costume. He hates him. But Zoskios is the place that I would really like to eventually be able to take a pilgrimage for. Zoskios takes place in Warwickshire, England, which is not too far from London. It's a really small place. It's where Aleister Crowley and stuff got his start. If you guys are familiar with that, Zos Chaos has a lot of him and his. The chaos theory of magic is based off of his and uh, Austin Osmer or whatever, which is one of his students who split off, and Zoskia was his cult originally. So Zoskias is like loosely based on that. It has like some of the same, the same name basically, but a lot of the other elements of it are completely different. But so I would like to go there at some point. I've never been to like Europe or anything, and I'd like to go there to actually see some of the locations in person and do things like that. Plus, it would just be cool to go. There's a lot of places I'd like to travel, but yeah, no really major pilgrimage. I think it's always really cool when people can do that, though. So, writing about experiences is one of the easiest ways to do it, I think. All right. Let's see. Da-da-da. The next question is, what is the first book that made you cry? Oop. I actually think there's only been one book that's ever made me cry, period. So I'm not a super emotional person in regards to like stuff like that. I get upset, of course, but I don't like cry, if that makes any sense. So, but years ago, back when I was in high school, I read a book called Socrates in Love, which is a Japanese light novel that was translated in English. Basically, it, and this isn't spoilers, this is literally the whole plot and how they describe the back of the book. It is the love story about like from the point of the view of a boy who fell in love with a girl who had cancer and was dying. And so, at the beginning of the book, she's deceased. She has already passed. He's on the way to spread her ashes, but it kind of goes backwards and tells the story and stuff and shows her getting getting worse and things like that, and just talks about the relationship and things like that. And it was a very emotionally moving book, and it was very depressing, but it was also very well written, and I really enjoyed it. So that's the only book I can think that actually made me cry. I mean, I've screamed in rage when favorite characters in a book have died, especially when they're lackluster. I remember one of the top betrayals I've ever felt in a book was actually J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. It was specifically book 5. Yeah, it would have been book 5 when they killed Sirius Black. Sirius was one of my favorite characters, and that's not even why I was mad. I honestly, as much as I love characters, if they die and it's for a good reason and done in a way, I'm upset. But I'm not gonna be like, oh, how could this person do that? Like, I understand it's writing. I've killed off my favorite characters in my own stuff before. But specifically, the reason that one upset me so much was it was so just anticlimactic. Whoosh, he threw a curtain, that's it. And I was like, what? That's it? And they really didn't do a lot of mourning or anything after it either. So it was a weird one. I never actually read the last book. I only read book 6 after that. But I was kind of already like, I don't know, I just didn't really like where the series was going at that point either. So that was kind of one of those that I didn't like. Oh, I'm trying to think. I've read so much. I'm trying to think of like books where there's been a death that's impacted me or anything. But yeah, the only one, like I said, that I can think that made me cry was Socrates in Love. Socrates in Love. I have trouble saying like words. Sorry, guys. But yeah. Also, if there's any people who are watching, feel free to drop questions in the comments, and I will answer those as well. So just going through this list. All right. So we also have, what is the most unethical practice in the publishing industry? I'm self-published. But I do have some experience with publishers. This is why I'm currently self-published. I would like to eventually probably pick up another one or go with one, but I'm going to be a lot more careful. So the first one I went through, I was young, I was naive. Didn't sell itself as a vanity publisher, but it basically ended up being one. It was really bad. Like, I didn't have to pay to print or anything, but they controlled full rights. They didn't do anything. They were supposed to market and things like that. They didn't. I've always done my own cover art. I'm an artist, as like an illustrator and artist, as well as an author. I have a bachelor's degree in computer graphics design, so I can do all the design, the formatting. I can do like everything. I worked at a print shop, so I know how to do set up like pre-press and things like that, margins and bleed and things. So like I have a crazy range of knowledge. So like doing that stuff on my own wasn't necessarily bad. I liked having that control. I don't mind passing it off to somebody else, especially when I get as busy as I've been lately. But I was like, that's fine. But they were supposed to like do a lot of marketing. The extent of marketing I got from them is they sent me a press release, very generic, filled in, like one that they did for everyone, that they just kind of filled in some stuff. And that was it. They sent it to me. They didn't even send it to like local media resources or whatever. I sent it out myself to a couple, and it just, yeah, it wasn't really good. And then when I decided, after that, they also were supposed to do editing, and they never did. At least if they did, it was horrendous. I was appalled. I was like, wow, this is horrible. Like, you guys did it. And specifically, Fall of the Dragon is the only books that ever made it over with that one. It was only the first and second books across Beyond the Dancing Flames and Across the Wavering Landscapes. So they're the only two books of mine that have like a different cover art before what they have now. I've been doing some tweaks on the Archive of Sinners, but the art isn't changing. I'm just fixing it because I've gotten better at realism. So I tweak it as. I still need to go back and tweak some of the others. So far, Lust is the only one that's had the major obvious tweak, but the other ones have had some minor. Anyways, I digress. But yeah, so it was just things like that. And in the end, when I went, I told them, we had the contract and everything. It said nothing about them owning my, it was very legalese, lots of vague things, and they interpreted them how they wanted to. They were like, oh, well, if you want to break, contract with us and get rights back to your book, you have to pay us to get it back. Well, I ended up doing it because I was like, screw it, I don't want to deal with it. The second publisher I went through was a small publisher. They seemed really cool. I met them at a convention, a literary convention, and they really were excited about reading the book. They only ever had Beyond the Dancing Flames. There are the reason that the cover got redone to what it is today because we were working with that. But there were some weird things. So I had actually paid professionally to have Beyond the Dancing Flames edited at one point, and they went through and did a free editing as part of their publishing it wasn't my package, but I didn't pay anything. It was literally more of a traditional publisher, and small but it's traditional, so I wasn't paying for anything really. But our contract, at least, I didn't sign over my rights, so that was a plus, and that's the main reason I was like, okay, I'll see how it goes. But so they did editing. They spotted a lot of things that were missed in the one I paid for. So I'm like, really, I felt kind of like, oh, I can't believe I paid for that when obviously there's still a lot of issues. So the editing was really nice. That's why that book has some of the nice. Well, it's not the only one with nice editing, but that was like that one got some nice editing after that. Then we had some issues, and they helped me format the insides and stuff, and I let them do that because, like I said, even though I can do it, I don't always have to do everything myself. I'm totally okay with passing it off to others. I'm just not financially in the situation where I normally can. But after that, we did the cover. They had their own people in house to design covers, but I opted, and that was part of the contract that I would do it myself. So we walked through it, figured out what I wanted, what they thought was good. We worked kind of back and forth until we found what was ideal, and that's basically the cover that I do have today because they never had any of the rights to the cover. It was all my art and stuff, and it never even got published through them. So unlike the other one where it had been printed, this one never did. And sorry, I'm gonna take a drink. But basically, oh, that's Connor. That's not even my cat. My cat's still sleeping. Ooh. It's the other cat. But anyways, so it just, they okayed the cover, and we were laying out the formatting on it and things like that, and they helped me with the summary, and everything was good. And then suddenly after 3 or 4 months where we hadn't done, we had the cover, which was considered to be an okay mode, and we weren't really paying attention to it. We were working on the formatting and editing of the inside. They suddenly came back and they're like, oh, well, we need to tweak the cover now. I'm like, what? Why? And, they were really pushing for some really weird tweaks. They wanted to change some of the colorization up, and, Fall of the Dragon is, if you guys aren't familiar with that series, that trilogy of mine is all about literally dragons in Phoenix is magic. The first book doesn't have as much of that as the second and third do, but it's kind of the step up from there. Because in the first book, you're led to believe that the dragon and Phoenix are just empires, although the Phoenix is a character in the books, so she's there constantly. Her name is Anya. But, then you start finding out that it's that's not quite enough. There is an actual dragon and there's some issues with that. So, but that's kind of the focal of the point. And, obviously when you think dragons and Phoenix, both of them are associated with the element fire and stuff. And so I don't mind them trying to add reddish hues or anything like that, but they were Oh, the color variations they were doing. They took my art and just kind of were changing around the colors, and it was horrible. I was like, you guys are supposed to be professionals, and as a designer who's also professional, I'm like, no, this is bad design. They also chose some really bad fonts, and it was just a mess. And then we finally got it to okayed again. Went back to the editing, and then cue another like 4 months, and they once again brought back the cover and tried. And it's like it just got to the point where after a year it wasn't published, and they just kept going back after all that time. And I'm just like, no, I'm done. This is fine. We don't really. Our contract said I have full rights. We can split whenever we want. I don't feel you guys are giving me what you said. I don't feel you guys are really being super easy to work with. I think part of it was is they had a very specific idea in mind of genres, and I kind of was outside of that. I mostly write fantasy, and they had some fantasy, but a lot of it was like romance fantasy. I don't do romance. I don't write romance. There is very little romance in Archive of Sinners, so you will see stuff a little bit eventually, but it's yeah, no, I don't do romance. I always joke about romance, and I don't want to spoil it here because it gives away which pairing is Archive because it's an Archive of Sinners reference. But yeah, so Archive of Sinners is my only non-fantasy story that I'm currently writing. So yeah, but so it was just kind of a trying thing. So if I go back with a publisher, it's gonna be one that I will, I'll do the same thing. I want to talk with them, get everything first, and then decide. As far as contracts, I wouldn't sign away the rights for sure. I was really young when I did that one, but it's a lot learning. Traditional publishers are kind of weird. You don't ever want to use a vanity publisher. Seriously, it's not worth the money. They don't do stuff. You are better off paying other people to do the work, like do the setup and stuff for you. I see a lot of horrible covers come in. I'm in some author groups on Facebook, and like I don't always want to be the mean person, but as a designer, I was like, nobody's gonna pick up this book. Like it's horrible design. So I always help critique them. And I mean, I'm not mean about it, but I help critique it so they can have a better chance of getting stuff published and stuff too. And I mean, whenever I'm working on my covers and stuff, I send it to my peers to have them critique it and things like that and find ways to make it better. So, but yeah, so that was about publishing. I don't know what I'd say with unethical, the most unethical was, but yeah, in general, I guess maybe I would say is the fact that a lot of publishers, what they say they do and what they do is not quite the same. So make sure you know you're getting into. Read lots of reviews on publishers before you choose them. Oftentimes, self-publishing is the easier option because you have full control, but that does also mean that you will have to find people to do everything for you, and that can cost some money too. And I know if you're like me, you probably don't have a lot of money. Of course, if you're looking for stuff, I do editing and cover and design work and illustrations and photo manips and stuff. So feel free to contact me and we can talk about it. I have author packages and stuff available because as an author myself, I know how much trouble and how much money it can cost, and we don't have that. So you got to kind of figure out until you start selling books. All right, does writing energize or exhaust you? Depends. I really enjoy writing, but there are also like this. The reason the short story isn't done is because I was just so overwhelmed by everything else going on in life. It was really hard to get motivated on it. Ironically, when stuff started settling down, just a couple days ago is when I finally made like a big jump in it, and that's when I finally was like, oh man, I passed we're getting ready for the climax. We're heading toward the end now. I know where I am. I feel like I'm not floating around. But yeah, generally it's not too hard. I do always feel like some of the chapters, especially like the earlier ones where it's a lot of exposition, are a little, they don't like bore me or drag me down, but they aren't as exciting, and so that can be a little more tedious to write. Still, if I love the characters, I always try to do something so I'm having fun. Like the chapters where there's a lot of action are extremely exciting for me to write, so those always make me feel like really energetic afterwards. And stuff like that. Like even the same as with graphic novels, it's the same kind of concept. If I am drawing like a scene I really like or a storyline I've been really excited to write and work with, I'm just like the whole time like, yeah. So like with those Chaos Volume 13, that's been a big thing. Is this is one of those storylines. There's only a few big storylines in there, and this was one of the two that I considered like my top ones I wanted to write, because the other one was the doppelganger storyline, which already happened. This is currently the vampire one. So this one has been on like a list of ones I've been like, yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. So it's been pretty fun. But yeah, I'm really actually excited to write the next 2 books in Archive of Sinners because I'm finally getting to some of the stuff I really wanted to cover. And same with like Dragon Pillars. The 3rd book I'd always figured was going to be my favorite because my favorite of the pillars is Shadow, and he's not in there yet. And so I'm like, I've been dying to write for him and write the Shadow Dragon, but I can't. So yeah, that's kind of like how I feel about that, anyways. NaNoWriMo gets a little more exhausting too because you've got like a set deadline. When I write, I don't tend to give myself like really like so many words a day kind of thing. I just write. I feel that's a little easier. Like a lot of like my drawing and stuff, I have more of a set deadline on, especially like Zos Chaos. I do 2 pages a week. That's not 2 fingers. I do 2 pages a week. So that one has like a set deadline, and because of that, that's kind of what I'd work with on there. Yeah, writing I just generally don't, but NaNoWriMo we have that. All right, next question. What are common traps for aspiring writers? I think sometimes planning too much can be detrimental. It's good to have like a basic idea of what you want to do and a path to follow, but at the same time, you can't get too caught up in that. Once you start writing and getting in the flow of things, you will find that oftentimes your characters kind of take over the story and do whatever they want. So, one of the best examples I can think of for this is actually from Altair. I'm not going to say spoilers on here, but basically it's a dark fantasy, so there's a lot of death in it. That's about as what I'll say. One of the characters that was supposed to die ended up not dying. Basically, I had, here, this is like the scene that this, like in my mind, in my initial notes, I was like, this is the scene where this character will die. And when I got to that scene, I didn't even think about it. It just made no sense. So it was one of those, like, it wasn't a planned thing and the character ended up surviving. And I was like, guess he decided he was going to live today. So the Archive of Sinners has kind of been the same thing. There's been stuff that, like, I never really planned on being quite the way. I never really planned on there being so much snark between Missy and Ken, for one thing, and it just their personalities and stuff, just they did it on their own. I never planned on like Ken and Preeti being like sometimes like BFF girlfriend kind of thing. It's sometimes their relationship is weird. They both act more like they're 2 girls hanging out, even though Ken's not sometimes. But yeah, so that's kind of their relationship though. So like you get that. Actually, something from the next book I really hadn't planned on involved Officer McKinley or Jenny. She's a fun character to write too. So her and Very end up with a slightly different relationship that I planned. No, not romantic. I'll say that one. She's not romantic. But they end up in a different as far as friendship than I initially planned for them, just because it was like I started writing and I was like, before I even thought about like, okay, this is the scene I kind of wanted to do for the beginning and the opening, and I wasn't even really thinking about it, and I just started writing, and before I knew it, I was like, wait, why is Jenny the other character in this scene? It's Very and Jenny is the starting scene, so I was like, but it made sense, it made perfect sense to me, and I was like, they just kind of decided that on their own. So yeah, I mean that happens. Some other things to avoid: don't focus on your writing necessarily being good. It's a first draft. You're writing, right? It's better to get everything out and down and then go back and clean stuff up. So, don't think too much about it. It is a good idea to set deadlines, but don't be too strict on yourself. I am notorious for that. But, it's okay to give yourself realistic deadlines. It's okay to go slow. Definitely find an editor or at least some beta readers. I have had a lot of trouble finding this myself. I did find a really good editor for a while. I liked her a lot. She was really reasonably priced, but it's another one where she primarily does romance, so I was kind of the odd man out, and I ended up kind of parting ways for her because I paid for 2 books to be edited, and they were ones that had already been edited and published, but I was like, I want them re-edited so I can reprint them and make them better. And then she put me like at the back of the queue, even though I had paid way before a bunch of the other people. She's like, oh, well, they're new releases and stuff, and that's why they're priority. And it's like, it should be in order of who pays, because what does it matter that, I paid before them. I was the one in the list before them. I just felt like she basically was like, didn't really care about handling the stuff and was probably getting like bored of the stories and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't write romance and that's your thing. So I, got the stuff from her and that's pretty much been it. I used a different editor for Sloth. I think Sloth. Yeah. I was like, I don't remember which book he actually edited. Which, was another one that was reasonably priced. So it was a personal friend of mine, so it wasn't bad. But yeah, I'm still kind of he doesn't have a lot of time to do it, so I'm kind of in that whole still looking for editors. So big problem is I obviously don't have a huge budget, and most of my books are like 80,000 to 110,000 words, so I write really big books. But yeah, definitely try to find like a beta reader editor if you can. It is also good to make friends with other authors, especially like ones within like I don't want to say like because it's not like has nothing to do with skill set or authority or anything like that, but you want to find ones that are in a similar place. So like if you're a newer writer or you don't have a lot of reviews or anything like that, or you find people that kind of fill the same similar situations to you because they're going to be more likely to be sympathetic and be willing to work with you because they're also probably looking for the same exact stuff. Plus, they're also going to have some shared experience. Yeah, if you can get like somebody who's really well off and stuff and knows a lot, that's great, but don't expect it. Make friends, learn stuff, talk to all authors, get tips, and most importantly, write and keep writing. All right, let's see. Does a big ego help or hurt writers? I suppose it would depend on how people view things. So, personally, I think it's good to have a confidence in your work. Have confidence, no confidence. But I also know it is very hard. I am not the most confident person in myself. I am very bad at marketing myself. I'm better than I used to be. I've kind of forced myself to get over that. I have severe anxiety, and so sometimes I feel like I can push somebody else's stuff, but when you ask me about mine or want me to push mine, I feel like I'm making you read it or I'm pushing it in your face. So I just personally don't always feel comfortable doing that. So that was a big thing. But yeah, you wanna be like it's okay to be proud of what you wrote, and it's okay to really want to talk about it and push it. But when you come across having an ego, it's very hard to deal with, and I think a lot of people are turned off by that. I mean, I personally am. I know I've been at like shows where they've had authors, and I always check out the authors because I love to read. So I'm like, oh man, what's good? Anything new? Anything good and stuff like there. And I'll walk around and look at stuff, and a lot of them will call out and talk to you, and if they just start going off a mile about themselves and sounding really egocentric, hello, Ranafe, I just don't feel like I want to listen. I don't feel I want to buy the book. So you don't want to push that scale too hard. You want to be just like on the balance of be just enough, like have confidence but don't be overconfident, and accept criticism. Don't take it too personally. That's a very hard thing to do, but if criticism is given well and not in a cruel way, it's pretty easy to take. You can only get better as a writer, so things like that. But yeah, so don't have too big of an ego. Don't let yourself get overinflated as an ego. You shouldn't do that for anything. Enjoy your craft, be proud of it, but don't be proud to the extent that they think you're infallible and that you just feel like, oh, my work is the greatest in the world, kind of thing. People won't want to read it for that. All right. Once again, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going through this list. All right, next question on this list. What is your writing kryptonite? So I can think of a couple. So first off, I have dyslexia. So anyone who tells you that you can't be a writer if you have something like that is a liar. It is hard, and it can be hard to work around it. So sometimes that's probably one of the biggest issues I have. I usually am writing slow enough and not under stress, so it's not too big. But during NaNoWriMo, it likes to rear its ugly head a lot. Yeah, I don't know how to change things. I already said it. I'll try it better for the next one. It just went live by itself. Sorry. Yeah, I'm still new to this whole Twitch and stuff. Yeah, so don't expect much. Anyway, so it's like I forgot what that question was already. Oh, kryptonite. So yeah, with it though, like most of the I let very few people read the NaNoWriMo draft that I do of whatever I'm writing because it is full of dyslexia mistakes. Like I'm not just talking inverted words because those usually autocorrect. I mean, I literally take the whole sentence structure and flip it. So it gets a lot of weird stuff. I do some trades sometimes with other authors where like we'll trade some chapters of our NaNoWriMo stuff back and forth, and I've gotten some weird comments because they're like, I don't know what's going on here, and it's like, yeah, it's dyslexia. But usually I edit it to at least to an extent where it's more readable before I have pass it off to that. But yeah, so that's one of my things. I always have to do a couple of my own edits before I hand it off to anyone, even if it's not NaNoWriMo, because of the dyslexia. I've learned how to like deal with it over the years though and stuff, so that helps a lot. I can't say there's any real secret to dealing with it. You just have to find what works for you. Other writing kryptonites, oh, you better love me. No. So other writing kryptonites, I always get like I guess one word I overuse in each story. It's different for every story because I catch one and then I'm like not gonna use this word anymore, and then I end up picking up another one. So I know in the Beyond the Dancing Flames, the first book from Follow the Dragon, it was the word slightly. I used it a lot. So that was kind of one of those things like once I was aware of it. But yeah, I was like that was a big thing that like the editors said was like, you're really overusing this word. Oops. There was a word like that in Wrath, but I can't think of which word it was. I just know it's like in my mentally in my head, I have like this thing like, don't use this word, look at it. And a lot of times when you're writing the first draft, you just kind of write stuff out, which like I said is, something you do. You don't pay too much attention, just write it out, go back and edit later. Get the story out first, clean it up afterwards. But yeah, so I think those are like the big ones. I don't know. I'm sure there's other weaknesses I have. For a while, I had problems with fight scenes. I also had problems with killing characters off. I broke both of those. The Fall of the Dragon trilogy, it was at the end of book 2 that I was able to handle the fight scenes better. I starting with that scene, and then book 3 is full of really what I think are pretty cool fight scenes. So I got better after that. So I was like, yeah, this isn't too bad. With the character deaths, having trouble with killing characters off and really dealing with that. That's why Altair exists. So that was let's get better at this story. But yeah, whenever I notice something, I notice a flaw, I try to work on it. And I mean, that's all you can do. Like no matter what kind of creative media you're doing, it's what you kind of have to. So nothing to worry about there. Let's see. Have you ever gotten the reader's block? Assume that's the opposite of writer's block. I would guess it would be having trouble reading something. So I don't think so. Like, I always want to read something. Like, I love reading so much. I don't always have time for it, and that's a bit bothersome. But if I can find something to read, I read it. I have kind of gotten stuck on the last 8 pages of Devil in the White City, not because I don't want to finish it, because I do, but because I just kind of ran out of time, and I'm like, it's only 8 pages, and for some reason I can't make myself go back and pick it up and just finish it, and I really want to. So maybe that's something I'll do today. It's just 8 pages. I'll be done really fast. So I think it's also part of it is that the story, the whole stuff is over, so there's not really a lot of wrap up left. So I don't know what they're doing with the last 8 pages, but yeah, that's I guess the closest to that. Did you ever consider writing under a pseudonym? So for those who don't know, because I do put my real name in my books, my real name is Fawn Simoniak. The reason that I use Sanzaki Kojika is kind of a long, convoluted story, so I will sum it up quick. Way back in the day when I was really young, and AOL and internet and stuff started becoming more big in like middle schoolers and things like that. No, I'm going through a list of questions online because I haven't gotten any questions. So I'm just answering from a list. So I'm not just talking to myself. Yeah, no. But so yeah, Kojika is just Japanese for fawn. It is literally that simple. It was the nickname I used back then because my parents were like, don't use your real name online and stuff like that. So that was kind of a protection. Sanzaki actually I got from rearranging because it's based off of Japanese names. So the surname would be Sanzaki and Kojika would be the main name, the first name. So it's actually backwards of how American names go, which is why Kojika is like the name that most people usually used to call me, not Sanzaki. But with that said, Sanzaki, I just kind of took some of the letters. I have a Polish last name, so Simoniak has a Z in it, believe it or not. But I took some of the more prominent letters in Simoniak and kind of just was like, what can I do with this? Pulled some out and made a Japanese name. Later on, I learned it means of the forested capes. It's a very old surname that they don't really use a lot anymore in Japan, so I'm the little deer of the forested cape. But yeah, it's kind of stuck. I've been using it for so long that when I started writing, I was just like, I could start marketing myself all over again, or I could just use this name that's already been marketing. And I had been writing already by then. I mostly wrote in fan fiction. Yes, I started with fan fiction like so many people. But yeah, so it didn't make any sense. So I mean, I've been working on making the connection between the two, which is why I use my real name on stuff, but I still write under the name Sanzaki Kojika. But if you look in the back in the author bios, I always put Fawn Simoniak. And even when I sign books, I sign it Sanzaki Kojika and then in parentheses Fawn S. So I've, been making that connection between the two because I don't necessarily care, like, if you guys, like, it's not one of those, like, oh no, I don't want people to know I'm writing these kind of thing. It was just, that was the reason for it. It was no reason to keep building when I already had something built. Mm, do you try to be more original or to deliver to the readers what they want? I don't consider delivering to the readers what they want not being original per se. But it's kind of a mix, I guess. I write mostly for myself. But when people start reading it and start telling me stuff, I do listen. I want to know what they like, what they don't like, because I don't want to keep stuff in there if it's not something people care about. I want to keep characters in there that are interesting to people, not want to keep them reading it. Archive of Sinners hasn't had too much with that. There's not a huge cast compared to some of my other stories. It's relatively small. You've got very pretty Ken, Miss Lorania, Thomas, Emma, Jenny. I don't remember Vargas's first name. He's always Vargas to vary, but he does have a first name. I know Jenny's is McKinley is her last name, but yeah, she got first name status in book 5 from Very, so she's no longer a officer, like Detective McKinley. So, but yeah, I tend to remember the characters' names based on the way my characters remember them, and because Archive of Sinners is all first point of view, it's all from Barry's point of view. I think the only thing in Archive of Sinners I did that was I was planning on doing it at some point anyways, but I set it up when I did and why I did is because I was really pleasantly surprised that the character Lou, which is one of the werewolves that assists them in book 3. He's from Louisiana, New Orleans specifically. He's the alpha of the pack down there, but he's also close friends with Preeti. He got really popular. Hello. So he got really popular, and I was really surprised. So I'm like, I had always planned on doing some more with him and bringing him back, but yeah, he got popular enough that I was like, I guess instead of just having it be a phone call, I'll physically bring him back in person. So yeah, he shows up in book 5, Sloth. So he is actually there again. But yeah, he wasn't intended to return that fast, and it was probably just going to be a short story or phone calls. Like the character Klaus, which is one of the ghost hunters from book 2, one of the German ghost hunters. Klaus and Sinclair. He shows up a lot in the books, but as like a telephone call, or an email or something. It's not super important, so he's not like physically in there. And of course, he lives in Germany, so it's a lot further away to have him return for any reason. He was in the short story for 2016, the Halloween short story. As one of the characters. In fact, I purposely split it up where him and Very were together because they are just humans, where, Pretty and Ken are werewolf and succubus. So I put the 2 less powerful people together on purpose. So it was a little more fun to mess with, but yeah. So, I mean, it goes both ways. Zoskias is a lot more pandering to fans than some of my other ones, but I haven't had to really do that in books. The exception would be, I guess, Altier was supposed to be a standalone, and I listened to so many people who are like, oh my gosh, how could you end it like that? Like, what's going to happen? Where is this going to go? I really want a sequel. So Hanif, which is a sequel to Altair, is specifically being written because I always had an idea for it, but it's only being written because of the fact that so many people push for it. So you can thank everyone for that, for when it finally comes out, for those of you who are interested. All right, once again, any questions, you may type them in the box. It's almost time to end this, but I'll take, a couple more. So either I'll read some more off this list, or if anybody actually has a question. All right, let's see. The next question on this list. There's 50 questions. I'm on question 11, guys. Probably going to keep it open for later. All right. Do you think somebody could be a writer if they don't feel emotion strongly? Yeah, for sure. Writing isn't necessarily tied to emotions. Just make sure you pick a character you can write. There are plenty of characters who aren't strongly emotional. You can use other things and other ways to inhabit it. Plus, things like emotions can be learned just by observation and things like that. I know a lot of autistic and people with Asperger's and stuff, and like the way that they have to judge things is completely different because they don't have that same emotional level that we do sometimes. And I've talked to them about it, and it's really interesting how they do, because you have to watch for other social cues and things. And like I said, I'm not emotionless, but I'm not super romantic or lovey-dovey. I don't cry easily. Get upset, but I don't cry easily and things, and like things don't like make me, like when I'm reading books or watching sad movies, and like I don't generally cry from them. It might hurt a little bit, but I'm not gonna like be in lots of tears or anything. So yeah, and I mean, I write fine, I personally think. But yeah, you want to make your character something you can relate to personally. So if you have trouble with emotions or something, make your character be the same. And that's not a problem. Real people exist like that. There's a lot of people like that. So it's important, just to make that connection with you and have it be the person, like be you. Or be as close, not be you. You don't want to write yourself, but you know what I mean. Hopefully. What other authors are you friends with, and how do they help you become a better writer? I'm actually friends with a lot of authors. Some of them I don't know as well as others. I'm in several author groups, and I have tried to make friends with a lot. I've also made friends with some of the other local authors at local author shows. One of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest flaws I've noticed with that, is a lot of them most of us don't write the same genre. And that was a big thing at first, where the first kind of groups that I started getting involved with, a lot of them are romance writers, and honestly, they're very cliquish, and I was not very impressed by them. However, the new group of people that I've kind of been that locally that I've met, like we've got children books author, we got nonfiction, we've got one of the few fantasy ones out of there. There's a couple others, but you got mystery. There's a lot of romance still in there, but there's also a lot of nonfiction, and there's a lot of children authors, and it's nice because we're all from like different genres, but we all kind of like, hey, we're all struggling through the same things, all dealing with the same areas. So when we go to author shows and stuff, we always talk and chat like that. I was really happy when I did a book signing, because this year was supposed to be a lot of book signings for the Dragon Pillars, Earth and Wind. I had planned on doing a lot of book tours this year at the beginning of the year before pandemic hit. So that obviously changed. But my first signing that I did actually get in from that was actually at the end of the year last year. And one of the author friends from that, some of my friends from that author group, I always invite them to stuff like this, but you don't expect them. A lot of them is out of their way, but they actually showed up, and some of them bought stuff for me, and it was really sweet. And I'm just like, guys, that's lovely, and I love it. And I want to be able to do the same support from them. I've also made some friends with some other authors more recently. I follow their social media and stuff, and it's just sometimes hearing what they're going through is enough to help you be a better writer, that that you can relate to them, that they're going through the same struggles, and that they're, even if they write amazingly, they're not just instantly a beautiful writer. They have to go through edits and stuff like that. So yeah, there's so many, I can't just think of names off the but yeah, I definitely think getting involved with other authors is a good idea because it helps you a lot. All right, yeah, so I guess I'll see if I can answer this one really quickly and then call it, because it's about time to end it anyways. But do you want each book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? Well, obviously, Archive of Sinners is a series. However, I would also like to think that for the most part, you can pick up almost any book and be able to jump into it. The exception for that would be books 3 and 4. Book 3 you can pick up fine, but I feel like book 4, if you haven't read book 3, it is they are the only two books in the Archive of Sinners series that are directly linked. And even then, the plot wise, they're not directly linked. It's just there is something that happens at the end of book 3 that basically is what affects Barry and causes everything, like all of his stuff in book 4. So if you don't understand it, it does mention what it is and things like that, but it's a little different, So that's like the only ones. But other than that, I feel like you could pick up any of the books individually and be able to read them. And that was my goal, is to have them be, there's a progression of story and time, and like characters change and stuff over the books too, as far as the ones he's working with and things like that. But overall, if you picked up book 5, you wouldn't be totally lost with what the book series was. You just probably wouldn't have the connection. I know that was actually one of the problems when I did a NaNoWriMo exchange thing, and I gave them some chapters from it. Was when I was writing Wrath, and the girl who was reading it was like, "Wow, I really don't like Very. He's a bad character, and like he's just not nice and friendly." And I was like, "Yeah, you don't know how he was before, because book 4 he starts really rough because of the stuff that happens in book 3." So I'm like, that one definitely was why I'm like, I think that one is not a good one to start off, especially because I want people to like Barry. But yeah, so thank you guys for coming to my Q&A. If you commented in the chat at all, I know you're here, and you get a entry into the raffle for that. If you had asked a question, you would have gotten one for that too, but I had no questions asked by anyone in the audience. I just wrote off a list. So but yeah, so I will be live a little bit later as well with not just me. Well, we'll have the character Q&A is at 3, so in 2 hours, we will have the character Q&A, and you'll get to ask some questions of the characters. I also have a list pulled up for that in case there aren't a lot of questions. So we'll have some chit chat and things. Thanks for coming again, and I hope you guys have a chance to read Archive of Sinners and enjoy it. Have a good Halloween.